Hello YouTube, thank you for watching my channel, and hopefully you'll enjoy this video. The title of the video is, Can You Grip a Handgun Too Tightly? I've heard that term used a lot. That's a term, you're gripping the handgun too tightly. It's become a throwaway line for most firearms instructors. Anybody who gets any sort of military or law enforcement instruction is going to hear, remember, don't grip the gun too tightly. So we're going to explore the history of it a little bit and my thoughts on it. So a little bit about my background. I did 4 years in the Marine Corps, 28 years law enforcement, and I was in the firearms industry for about 3.5 years. With my two departments, I was one of them, I was a armor range master, and then when I worked in the firearms industry, I was a firearms instructor at a large location in San Diego, and I instructed a lot of people over my 3.5 years there. So that's kind of my background. So when I got into law enforcement way back in the mid-'80s when rocks were soft, most of the instructors were physically large, ham-fisted guys who had been cops in the 50s and the 60s, or in the military in the 50s and the 60s. One of my first firearms instructor had been in Korea as an officer in the Marine Corps. So they said and did a lot of things that we no longer teach, but they were pretty good overall. But every single one of them mentioned that, make sure you don't grip the gun too tightly. And I think that's really kind of false, because it implies that any person who picks up a handgun can grip it too tightly, which is incorrect. Okay? So I've instructed young officers right out of the academy. I've instructed officers that were, about ready to retire. I've trained teenagers. I've trained women. I've trained males. I've trained senior citizens. You name it. I've trained the whole gamut. People with physical disabilities, injuries, you name it. So I have a lot of background on the one-on-one type of training. So when it comes to holding a firearm, let's clear this one. So my Glock 48, empty, empty, empty. So we have the firearm right here. Now, when most people talk about gripping it too tightly, they grip too tightly, and what happens is the front of the gun begins to shake. The gun literally moves like this. Essentially, the front sight begins to move about. And if you do that, you're going to lose accuracy in the firearm when you pull the trigger. Now, here's the caveat, okay? Now, and I'm going to throw myself into one of the categories I mentioned earlier. So I'm right-handed, and that is, if you can see right there, that scar is 2 surgeries on the ulnar nerve in my elbow. So pinky curls up, but it really doesn't do much as far as grip strength goes. So if you watch me here, as I punch out, I'm going to grip this gun as tightly as I can. I'm literally every ounce, and the front sight is barely moving, or essentially not moving at all. Okay? So I can't grip this gun too tightly. It's just simply not physically possible for me. As a sweeping generalization, senior citizens, women, very young people, people with physical injuries such as myself, we just can't grip it that tight. We just simply don't have enough strength in the hands, the forearms, to grip the gun so that the entire thing is moving, the front sight is moving. Now, there are people who can, usually tend to be male, usually tend to be larger. They don't have to be. I worked with a guy who was my size, and he worked as a blacksmith. He shot horses, and that guy's grip strength was like 40, 50 pounds above what the average male's grip strength was. So those kind of people can physically grip the gun too tightly. Most of us mere mortals cannot. We just simply don't have the strength in our hands to do so. We want to grip the gun as tightly as you possibly can. So when we're gripping the gun, when you're first doing it, I need you to grip the gun like you're hanging off the side of the building. And if you let go of this gun or you lose your grip, you're going to fall to your death. That's how tightly you should be gripping it. And if you grip it that tight and the front sight doesn't move, it just hangs there, then that's your grip. If you grip it that tight and you're all over, relax your hands equally to the point that the front sight stops moving, then that's your grip. And a subtle hint of this is this. And another technique is if you're here and you're firing, and after you fire, you do this, or you do this, or you do that, or you have to kind of get it, then you're not holding the gun tight enough. The issue with holding a gun too tightly is the fact that it can affect your accuracy at distance. That's the worst thing that happens. If you don't hold the gun tightly enough, you can induce a limp wrist. So if you're holding here and you get that, the gun isn't going to cycle properly. In revolvers, that's not really an issue. However, if you have a semi-automatic handgun and you don't have a stable platform for it, the gun will not work properly. You will induce failures to feed, stovepipes, you name it. And you don't get any better accuracy than you do if you were over gripping it. So grip the gun as tightly as you can, and only after you've done that and you've ascertained using, again, is the front sight moving? Is it cycling properly? If that's the case, then that's it. And if you're an instructor out there and you're, super buff, or you're this or you're that, or you can crush coins in your hand or whatever, yeah, you can grip the gun too tightly. But most of us mere mortals, we can't. It's not physically possible for us to do so. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you get something out of it, and have a great day. Thanks, YouTube.